This is ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage. Connect with us at accnation.net. Listen to our podcast and streaming radio. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on your favorite social media outlet. Now, here's Will and Jim.
Miami Hurricanes football. Welcome to this ACC Nation preview with Manny Navarro with The Athletic and New York Times, host of Wide Right podcast. And if you're in South Florida, you can catch him on 7 Sports Extra and the Big O Show as well. He makes a little time in a super busy schedule to also coach, which is what Manny and I were just talking about before we started the program. And we're always appreciative of the time that he finds for us to talk about the Canes. Welcome, Manny.
Thanks for having me on again, Jim. It's always a pleasure to do the show with you every year.
Same here. Hey, let's start out with a thumbs up and thumbs down on the schedule. And let's see what you're feeling this year, how the team is going to perform in this game, this season opener, this big game on Sunday, August 31st, Miami versus Notre Dame. It's a 7:30 game on ABC. Wow. I mean, this is quite the, I guess it's going to be telling in a lot of ways as to what the season's going to look like. So thumbs up or thumbs down for the Canes in this game?
You know, it's a great question, Jim. I am torn because obviously both of these teams are coming off so much of a transition. Notre Dame, new quarterback, Miami, new quarterback, Notre Dame, new defensive coordinator, Miami, new defensive coordinator. So many pieces moving in and out, shuffling in and out. I think being at home in an opener against a quarterback who has not started a game yet in CJ Carr, who's awfully talented and will be very, very good, is going to give Miami an advantage. So thumbs up playing CJ Carr in his first game. That said, I don't know that you're fully guaranteed a victory here, playing against a team that's coming off a trip to the national championship game and a whole lot of wins, including one in your backyard in the Orange Bowl in the national semifinals against Penn State, which I attended. So it's a very interesting start to the season, a very interesting schedule. This is a much tougher schedule for Miami, I think, than the ones that they faced recently. Got a trip to SMU in the middle of the season that's not easy, and you got Louisville at home on a Friday night. Louisville's always a good team. So I think this is a very challenging schedule, and we'll learn a lot about Mario Cristobal here in year 4.
So in addition to the thumbs up and thumbs down, my buddy Will, who's not here with us, talking about the Miami Hurricanes, he likes to offer this as well. So, you know, if you're not 100% sure or you want to give a little leeway here instead of going out on that limb, he always goes, so
Yeah.
we'll throw that one in there just in case we get to a game where I'm not really 100% sure. I think this next one you should be 100% sure. Miami versus Bethune-Cookman, and this is a game that they've been playing for years now, and it's a good way to. I don't want to put it in a negative light. It's a good tune-up game for Miami, but it's also a good game for Bethune-Cookman to have. It helps to supplement their program.
Yeah, it does. Obviously, there's so many financial benefits for FCS programs playing these games, and why they ultimately schedule them is to help finance their athletic departments and their football teams. And so I think for Miami, obviously, this is a thumbs up game, one of those that you feel is always like a preseason game, right? Of course, you got Notre Dame the week before, so you probably wished it was the other way. But hey, TV is what drives these the timing of these games and why. Miami's opening with Notre Dame. Obviously, ESPN and ABC and all of the networks want to make their money, and so that's what you do. You make that the first game. But the Hurricanes should use this as a warm up for a lot of those freshmen and sophomores that haven't played a ton. This is their opportunity to get in and play some meaningful snaps and to gain some experience for what'll end up being a much tougher season as it goes along.
The next game up is going to be played at 4:30, which is a little odd, but nonetheless, it'll be on the CW. It's Miami versus USF. Now, I'm not really sure where USF stands this season. but they can be competitive. And
Mhm.
coming out of these two games, which is kind of, the high of the adrenaline high of Notre Dame, and then maybe not so much with Bethune-Cookman, you get into this USF game and you have to watch yourself and be careful.
You do, and obviously Alex Golesh, you go back to last year's game. I was in Tampa for it. Alex Golesh's team um, was in it for the first half, first quarter or so, and they were giving Miami a nice little bout, and then the Hurricanes kind of just boat raced them in the second half and pulled away. So I think ultimately that's probably what'll happen here again. He does have his quarterback back who was injured in last year's game and lost for the season. So I think that USF is one of those group of five programs that you got to be careful with because we've seen them play some teams tough in the past. Alabama, certainly, they've given them all they've wanted the last couple years that they've played them. And so I think the Hurricanes, again, this will probably be a game very similar to last year where it's tight in the first half and then the Hurricanes pull away.
Next game up is a biggie.
Yeah.
Miami and Florida. The interesting thing that I'm seeing here on this schedule is 4 games at home.
Yes.
I mean, and that's pretty unusual. That doesn't happen that often. And there's a lot of home games this season, which is, I think, a plus for Miami.
Yeah, certainly you can get some fans to show up, right, for these games, these big matchups, Notre Dame and Florida. Yeah, I think this is a very interesting game because I think both of these programs are in a very delicate state with their head coaches in the sense that you're in year four, you want to start seeing some tangible results. For Miami last year, it obviously felt like they were on that way with the great start that they got off to, and then they collapsed at the end. I think for Florida, they were the opposite story. They got stronger and stronger as DJ Lagway improved and got better as a really talented young quarterback. So again, I think this is another 50-50 game for the Hurricanes because Florida is a team that is getting better, and I think their head coach has done a good job sort of stabilizing and riding out the waves. But they're going to be coming off of a really tough games themselves against LSU the week before. So I think this game is more about health. Both of these teams will have played somebody, Miami, Notre Dame, and then of course the Gators will have faced LSU right before playing the Hurricanes. So I think we'll see where these teams are health wise, but I think this is a pick 'em game.
So I'm going to take a pause here just for a moment, and which sort of lines up with the schedule because they get a break after this game. What do you think? How do you feel about this team if they're 4-0 at this point?
Well, you're feeling really, really good. You're feeling like everything that you hoped for if you were a Miami fan in the offseason. The defense has come together under their new coordinator, Corey Heatherman. Carson Beck, his elbow is fine. And that all the pieces Mario has been putting together behind the scenes in the recruiting trail, all of those guys have developed into the kind of players you want them to be. I think at this point, if Miami is 4-0, they're a legitimate contender not only to win the ACC, but to get to the college football playoff and make some noise. You beat Notre Dame in Florida, granted at home, and you're 4-0. I think you're feeling really good about the state of the program.
Big, that would be big stuff. And here's this is odd because we're not really sure where FSU stands at this point. I mean,
Mhm.
after last year, uh, we tend to live in the past sometimes when it comes down to projecting where teams are going to be in the future, which
Yeah.
is a mistake, especially with NIL money going on these days.
Yeah.
But this is a big game as well. Come off that big Florida game, you have a break, and then on Saturday, October 4th, return with a trip to Tallahassee against Florida
Yeah.
State. Wow. Where are we on the thumbs up, thumbs down, or scale on this one?
Yeah, obviously everybody's going to look at the fact that Florida State only won 2 games, and you mentioned the volatility of college football these days. My job now at the Athletic is to be part of the roster construction team. So I study all this player movement quite a bit, and Florida State's roster is vastly different. Their whole team is vastly different. New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. It's really hard to sit here and tell you with a straight face, I know what the Seminoles are going to do. Tommy Castellanos, I think, is a really uh, talented quarterback, dual threat guy who can beat good teams. But you have no clue as to what the rest of the offense is going to look like. And Granted, him and Gus Malzahn have worked together in the past. Gus recruited him to UCF before Tommy went on to Boston College. You've got a bunch of new guys on the defensive side of the football as well. But look, I would say this to any Miami fan. Here's what you got to think about. Every time you go to Florida State, has it ever been easy? Has it ever? Right? So 50-50 with this one as well. I think we will know if Miami is 4-0 as you mentioned prior, if they're in that state, then certainly you're going to feel really confident going into this game, especially if Florida State is not 4-0. But it's still Florida State. It's still a talented program, and I bet you Mike Norvell has this game circled on his calendar as far as his comeback tour.
State of flux football. That's the way I always look at any of the teams that are playing each other from the state of Miami. It's state of flux. It could anything could go south or it could go well for you at any given moment, which makes it great football. That's the whole reason we watch.
Mm-hmm.
So a break after this game, and then on Friday, October 17th, as you were alluding to, this is not an easy schedule. This is kind of insane. But if Miami performs well and starts running the schedule, as you indicated as well, this team, this could be top five, and maybe even going for a national championship. But I get a little ahead of myself here. Let's work on this game. It's Miami and Louisville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously their coaching staff has done a tremendous job since coming in. I think 9 wins, 8 wins the first 2 years on the job. So I would always say this. He knows how to work the transfer portal. Jeff Brom knows how to work the transfer portal, and he's got another quarterback in Miller Moss who started 9 games for USC last season. He's got a bunch of wide receivers who were all starters on their teams from NC State, Akron, and San Jose State, productive players. Actually 5 starting offensive linemen, full-time starters from other programs that are moving in. So again, another team that you have to sort of look at, take a step back and say, well, this is what they were last year. This is how much change they've overcome in the offseason. What do we really know? Well, we know Jeff Brom has proven in the past that he can win with new players. So another game that I look at and I say, I really don't know. Because Louisville has played Miami awfully tough. And if you go to last year's game, without Cam Ward, Miami does not leave Louisville with that victory. He played, to me, he earned himself the #1 pick with that performance against the Louisville Cardinals last year. He showed everybody in the country, hey, I can go toe to toe with anybody. You got a lot of questions yourself about Carson Beck and his elbow. Will you be able to put up points the way you could last year? And I think this Louisville game will be a good barometer for that.
Next up, Stanford takes a trip to the East Coast and heads into Hard Rock against Miami. I always hate to say, this is an obvious game. It on the face of it, it may. But again, here we have a whole new look Stanford team. They're not loaded, but they have people in the position to make things happen. Especially including, their coach and the general manager of that operation, which are making huge strides out there. And being that most of the ACC media is on the East Coast,
yes, we
tend not to hear about all these little things that are going on out there. So I worry about the Stanfords and the Cals and the SMUs and what they can do, because we're not hearing everything.
Yeah, obviously Frank Reich and Andrew Luck have themselves a really tough job because Stanford has been on the downswing the last several years. Three straight 3-9 seasons. But go back and look at the beginning of last season, and Stanford goes on the road, and what did they do? They won at Syracuse, right? So coming to the East Coast early in the season is not maybe as big a deal as it is in the NFL, right? Where NFL teams are pretty bad on the road on the East Coast early in the year that come from West East. In this case, you have no idea what's going to happen with the Stanford team. I would pick Miami at home to win this game just on principle. I think because Stanford has undergone so much roster construction and so much changes, it's probably going to be a tough year for Frank Reich. But I think eventually Stanford will get right here under Andrew Luck. I think they've got the right guy in charge in terms of roster construction and understanding what it should look like. Let's not forget Andrew Luck was there when Stanford was very, very good with Jim Harbaugh and some of their other coaches, and so I think ultimately Stanford's in the right path, but they're probably not ready to win this game against a team as talented as Miami.
Yeah. All right. That's a thumbs up for
Yes.
Miami on that
Yep.
one.
Yes.
This next game, SMU, a surprise team last year to some degree. Again, maybe because we weren't listening, but being in the ACC championship game in really keeping Clemson in check to some degree, and then going on into the playoffs. No small accomplishment for this team. So we're not really sure exactly what they have or what they don't have, and this might be a really good head-to-head and prove it sort of game for both of these teams as we start getting into the latter part of the season. Miami is traveling this time to SMU.
Yeah, this team, this program, Rhett Lashlee has done a phenomenal job since leaving his post as Miami's offensive coordinator, going into Dallas and knowing exactly what buttons to push to get this program back to a level that their boosters and fan bases wanted to see for years, right? Since we saw the Pony Express back then. And look, back-to-back 11-win seasons. They won the American Conference in 2023 with Lashlee. Then they, go into the ACC last year, go 8-0, have the best scoring defense in the league, number 2 scoring offense. So I, this team lost a lot of defensive players. There were 9 full-time starters on defense that have left this program that were guys that were meaningful players. So there's a lot to replace on that side of the football. But I have full confidence that SMU is going to be very, very good once again on offense. Kevin Jennings proved it throughout the season when he replaced the starting quarterback there, who is now at Northwestern. Jennings did a good job, led his team to the ACC championship game. He's got some pieces that need to be replaced around him, but this is a game that I look at on paper and I say, well, this is probably one that Miami could definitely lose. Am I saying thumbs down? No, but I'm giving you the other 50-50 game because this is a program that has proven it. And Rhett Lashlee took a lot of transfers last year. He's taken a bunch more. They made it work. They took a bunch of Miami guys, Jared Harrison, Hunt, Elijah Roberts, guys that Miami discarded, and they turned them into all conference type players and in the ACC. So I just think this is going to be a tough trip for Miami, and I can't sit here in the middle of July and guarantee a victory because Rhett Lashlee deserves his respect.
I think that may be the game that I would be looking closely at as being let's not be surprised if something goes south.
Right.
That has the potential for going that way. I'll leave it at that. I still think Miami has, from everything I'm seeing, Manny, and everything I've read, heard, seen, whatever. And we've talked about this and joked about it over the years about prove it, show me, etc. I think this team is just in that position now that they're really starting to take off, and whether they put the burners on and really take off. This game may be one of those if they really lay down some wood here.
Mm-hmm.
I would say look out. There's no stopping them. So Miami and Syracuse, another home game. Guess what? Syracuse rolls into Hard Rock, and I just don't see the same team this year as I did last year in Syracuse.
Yeah, obviously, Fran Brown did a phenomenal job in year one to lead that program to 10 victories. Kyle McCord played a huge role in that, obviously. One of the most prolific passers in college football last season with, close to 4,800 yards and 34 touchdowns. LaQuinn Allen ran for over 1,000 yards. Jackson Meeks, Oronde Gadsden, two guys with over 70 catches and combined 2,000 yards in receiving. So that offense was off the charts, and Miami blew a 21-0 lead in the dome, and in a game that if they win, they get to the ACC championship game and they get to the college football playoff. So for every reason that on paper you look at this and you say, well, it's going to be really hard for Fran Brown to repeat what he did in year one. In large part because of the way I think he built this team. He's not as transfer heavy. He went with 36 high school recruits in this cycle, the most in the ACC. So it seems to me like he's building for the long haul at Syracuse. The way he's roster building. So I think Miami wins this game. I give Miami the thumbs up for a lot of different reasons, but in large part because it's not easy at Syracuse to replace the amount of playmakers that they just lost on that offensive side of the football.
Dave Doeren brings the pack into Miami, and this could be a solid game. I'm I've got a lot of questions about NC State for a variety of reasons, and my confidence in that team is waning. So, thoughts on Miami and NC State?
Yeah, NC State finished 15th in the league last season in defense, and their longtime defensive coordinator decided to take the job at Marshall after the season, took some players with him. The reason this is somewhat of an intriguing game for me is CJ Bailey, who did some things that as a freshman last year as their starting quarterback that hadn't been done since Philip Rivers and Russell Wilson were around in terms of some individual game performances and flashes. Bailey is a Miami kid, raised down here in South Florida, went to Hollywood Chaminade, was the high school quarterback of Jeremiah Smith. Of course, is the big star at Ohio State. So he has won a lot, won state championships, and I think he's going to be a really good quarterback for Dave Doeren. The issue is, do the Wolfpack have enough on the defensive side of the football to really turn things around, considering they weren't very good? They went into the portal and they brought in starters from Norfolk State and Temple and North Texas and Georgia State, guys that maybe proved it on the lower level, but didn't prove it on the higher level. And so a lot of questions on that side of the football. I think Miami takes care of business, but I would not be surprised if this is a nail biter because of CJ Bailey.
The next game up is another team that has, in my eyes, some question on the coaching end of things. Miami goes to Blacksburg and takes on the Hokies.
Yeah, rivalry game that didn't happen last year, right? Miami, Virginia Tech. We're so used to seeing it on an every year basis, especially when they were in the same division. Well, they did play last year. What am I saying? It was the year before, I think, that they had the year off. So it was a tremendous game last year. I'm forgetting my years, switching them up here in my head. But I know Miami fans were happy to see that game played again last year, is what I meant to say. And now you're going back to Virginia Tech, which is never an easy place to visit. But this is a program, as you said, that's in a state of transition. Lost a lot of their best players to the transfer portal. They're starting left tackle, they're starting left guard, their center. All of those guys went to Auburn, Oklahoma State, and LSU. So a lot of movement on that side of the football. Their secondary lost some two key pieces, two guys that were starters to LSU and Missouri. It's never a good sign when you're losing your best players in the portal. And so that said, do I just dismiss a trip to Blacksburg? Never. I've been there enough and covered this series long enough to know that Miami, Virginia Tech will always be an entertaining ball game. But I would say right now in July, you tell me who I have to pick a winner. I think Miami goes into Blacksburg based on what they've done in the offseason and wins.
That time of year, you never know whether it's going to be a foot of snow or if it's going to
Yes.
be 80 degrees. So,
Yeah.
New River Valley is an interesting place weather-wise. The last game of the season, Miami heads to Pitt, and again, I've got I've got three teams here that I'm looking at their coaches, and I'm kind of scratching my head about things. I'm not really sure what's going on at Pitt. Maybe there's been enough changes there to get the ball rolling again and not be a roller coaster team as they have been for the last, I don't know how many years. I can't even count anymore. What's your thoughts on this game?
Well, Pittsburgh, final game of the season. Miami has done this before and not left Pittsburgh very happy. They've lost some big games with great teams there before, and or not great teams, but teams that you thought, well, they should win this game. Pat Narduzzi, very interesting. Won the ACC a couple years ago. Goes through a 3-9 season, completely revamps his offense and then go 7-0 to start that season before losing six straight. So roller coaster isn't even the word. I mean, it is straight up and straight down at Pitt. So I know this. They've got their quarterback back. He's supposed to be healthy. Eli Holstein came in and did some great things through the first part of the season. Then he got hurt and the offense sputtered, and it wasn't the same deal. But Desmond Reed is back. He's a dynamic playmaker, guy who catches the ball out of the backfield. They've got some receivers who are proven commodities. They went out in the portal. They brought in Soteris Hicks from Louisville, who I think could be a surprise. They've got playmakers on offense, and they've got two of the best linebackers, I think, in college football, Kyle Lewis and Rasheem Biles. So I look at this game knowing history, knowing the way Pat Narduzzi coaches, the ways his teams can get hot or cold really, really fast. And I sit here right now in the middle of July and I say, I don't know. I think Miami should go into this game and win on paper, but I can't sit here and tell you that by the time we're at the end of the regular season that somehow, some way, Pat Narduzzi doesn't have it together, and that team is on the rise. So I think it'll be a very interesting game. But right now, you tell me July 21st, Manny, what's your gut tell you? My gut tells me it's a 50-50 game.
Okay. Fair enough. From the looks of it, it looks like they're definitely bowl eligible. So,
Hmm.
and has the potential for being an ACC championship game contender. So, we'll
Hmm.
see. Let's see how it all plays out. But like you said, some of those games being that right in there type of thing, um, you never know. You just never know.
It's a lot harder to do these predictions. It is. It
Yeah,
really is.
especially this early.
What I tend to look at more than anything else these days is production at the four level. How many transfers do you get that were actually productive and proven commodities? Not how many power four guys do you get that were 4 and 5 stars and still haven't done anything. Florida State went down that path last year and they were a 2-win team. They took a bunch of guys from power four teams and it just did not work. And I think ultimately, when you look at the transfer portal, you look at roster reconstruction, the teams that land proven power four players, even if they're not great, but guys that started and played a ton, that's meaningful.
Yeah. On the positive side of things here, I I caught this morning from a
Hmm.
Vols blog. Mario Cristobal is quietly becoming a major pain for Tennessee, and I had to laugh. I enjoyed that. Just the lead part of it I enjoyed, and then read the rest of it, and I'm going like, well, that's good. When it comes to recruiting, uh, Cristobal is I think from what I can see has been altering slightly every year his approach to things, and the lack of patience sometimes that we have as fans or as writers or whatever is we tend to think that things are going to move along quickly, but it looks to me like his recruiting strategy, if there actually is one, because sometimes you just hit and miss, but it looks to me like this team is slowly but surely building off of the recruiting that they're doing, and they're getting into places and pulling people that maybe they hadn't pulled in the past.
Hmm.
They're winning in situations where maybe they wouldn't have in the past. They're beating out SEC teams, Big Ten teams for players. Has there indeed been a change in his recruiting strategy, or is this just look like the overall plan as it plods along?
Well, I think he's definitely made progress in areas that his predecessors have not, right? I think he's gotten Miami back to a level, he and Miami's NIL department, let's not forget those guys,
Yeah.
have put the Hurricanes in a position where they can go into other places and win over some big time recruits. Jackson Cantwell, the number one high school recruit in the recruiting cycle, the offensive tackle who is a supreme athlete whose parents were Olympians. That was a huge victory for Mario Cristobal in the offseason. But he's an offensive lineman, and Mario has proven time and time again, being an offensive line coach, that he can get elite offensive linemen who maybe aren't from the area to come to this program. And he obviously did that with Francis Mauigoa. He did it with Samson Okunlola, who still really hasn't played yet at Miami, but was a five-star recruit. He's done it on the defensive line as well, getting some big time guys from different parts of the country to come and play for Miami. I think ultimately though, and I don't mean this to spin this negatively, the way I will measure Miami and Mario Cristobal is how they do in their backyard with the number one players in the country, the guys that are legitimate, the best at their position or top two, top three. And Jeremiah Smith going to Ohio State, as tough a decision as it was for him, I was there for his announcement. That was a sign that Miami is still not where it wants to be. It wants to be able to keep the best players in its own backyard. And I've said this repeatedly over and over again to people. Miami will be back when they're winning on the field, they're competing for championships, playing in the college football playoff, and the recruits take notice. And it still hasn't happened yet. This offseason, they had two guys in their backyard that were arguably the best at their position at wide receiver and running back. Both of those guys decided to commit elsewhere. And as for as good a job as Mario has done rebuilding the offensive and defensive lines, you will know when Miami is back, when the best players in their backyard say, yeah, I believe in what's going on there. And they don't pick Texas and they don't go to Syracuse or somewhere else because they're offering a big bag. It's because they have to be at Miami because they see what's happening and they trust that this program is actually going somewhere. And they haven't gotten to that point yet.
That does take some time, if ever, to accomplish. So good point. Let's talk about Carson Beck here real quickly. That UCL injury and the surgery, and I understand that he didn't play in the spring game. He has been seen throwing and seems to be slowly reintegrating himself into being a starter. So we'll start with Carson and your thoughts on Carson, and then look at who is there as his backup. There's 7 quarterbacks, and one of them has to be able to step up.
Yeah, obviously, to me, I look at the situation and I think of it as a guy who could potentially be the number one overall pick. Carson Beck was being talked about like he was going to be the number one overall pick while he was at Georgia going into last season. People were putting that tag on him. Instead, Cam Ward became the number one overall pick. Carson Beck is coming back from a elbow injury that other quarterbacks before him have been able to bounce back from and have success. The issue for Carson, in my eyes, is his wide receiver room is not nearly as talented as the one that Cam Ward had last season with Xavier Restrepo, with Elijah Arroyo at tight end. There's a lot more unproven ness, if that's a word, from Miami's receiver room and pass catchers. And so he thrived when he had Ladd McConkey. And the great tight end whose name is escaping me right now, 2 years ago, when he was a starter at Georgia, last year had a receiver room that wasn't as good, and his numbers and production fell off. He wasn't as good through 12 interceptions. Completion percentage was down. So I think every quarterback is only as good as the pass catching options that he has for him. He can't do it himself. Can Carson Beck be a better decision maker? Will he maybe thrive a little bit more at Miami being in the ACC? Probably. But I look at this season and I say to myself, this is a guy who was being talked about as a number one pick. If everything falls into place, I think by the end of the season, if Miami's as good as we think they can be and they're competing for national championships, I think people will be talking about Carson Beck being a first round pick.
It would be absolutely wild to have two first round first picks at quarterback coming out of the same back to back. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just that's something to be talking about. So, Emory Williams, is he the guy that is going to be the backup, or is there somebody else? Because I know there's a couple of other guys that are showing pretty well.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation there. I am not sure what's going to happen with the backup quarterback job. Emory Williams spent the spring taking a lot of the number one snaps while Carson Beck was recovering from that elbow injury. But he's also a guy that I would imagine has been waiting here since 2023 to get some playing time. Was probably close to graduating because he's a very smart student as well, and is looking for an opportunity to play somewhere. And so I don't know that I think he is still on the roster. I think he is still somebody that is going to go into the season hoping to get in there, especially if Carson Beck is injured or can't perform. But I think ultimately you look at what the long-term future of the quarterback position is at Miami. Are they going to continue to have to take guys in the transfer portal? I think the hope is that they won't. I think Luke Nickel, the freshman who just arrived on campus, the four-star quarterback out of Georgia, I think they view him as a guy who could potentially win the starting job next year. I think they look at Darion Coleman, the quarterback who they have in this 2026 recruiting class, as a guy who can come in and compete for a starting job. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the backup quarterback job, especially in today's era where guys are constantly leaving and going to new places. That position is just a revolving door. Just look at the national championship game. Both of the starters were transfers, first year guys. So I think who Miami's starting quarterback will be next year will be very, very interesting. It's a question I can't answer right now, but I think Emory Williams going into this season, going off of what I know from spring football, I think he is the backup for right now.
Okay. Um, since you brought up the wide receiver room, let's talk a little bit there about,
Mhm.
you know, I was just always in awe every time I watched Restrepo grab something
Hmm.
and go with it. And so where do we stand now with wide receivers and who's stepping up? Who can fill in some of these big shoes? They're not going to fill in completely, but they've got to be there for Carson Beck to be effective.
Yeah, I think you have to watch the way teams construct their teams and how they operate in the offseason to really get a feeling for how they feel about particular rooms or positions. Miami went into the transfer portal after spring football and pulled Keelan Marion from BYU and Tony Johnson from Cincinnati. Why? Well, it's because they're really young in their wide receiver room. JoJo Trader is the only returning player on the roster who started a game for them, and he started the bowl game against Iowa State. So I think this is a room that hasn't been very, very productive in terms of the guys that are returning. The additions in the transfer portal, CJ Daniels was at LSU last season. Not as good as maybe LSU wanted him to be, just kind of a, 42 catches, 480 yards, no touchdowns type season. Not the kind of stuff you want to see from a G5 guy that you were high on. Miami took him in large part because he is a veteran. Keelan Marion is an explosive return man, not necessarily a huge producer at wide receiver. Tony Johnson, to me, just another guy. Was more productive at FAU than he was at Cincinnati. So I think this is a huge question mark. It's the biggest question mark on the roster for me going into the season. That's not to say Miami doesn't have talent. JoJo Trader is really, really good. I think Joshua Moore, the freshman who they just added, who's 6'4", reminds me a lot of Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson was a top 5 pick and a Hall of Famer for the Houston Texans. Malachi Tony, really talented guy. But this is without question the biggest unknown going into this season is the wide receiver room.
Two areas of interest to me. I always like to look at the linemen because without a solid line, something is clicking there, and these guys are working together. You're not going to give Carson any time to really see what's out there and go through his reads. What's the offensive line look like?
Well, you got guys who have played that are at least in the starting five. Francis Mauigoa, who I think is somebody that has been projected as a first round pick, is the anchor on the right side. You have Inez Cooper, who I think has really outperformed his recruiting rankings coming out of high school in Alabama. He's made 31 starts for Miami. Huge, big-bodied dude. I think the right side of Miami's offensive line is as good as it gets in college football. I think the left side, you have a little bit more questions about. Matthew McCoy is a guy who started 12 games for them last year at left guard. He's back, didn't grade out exceptionally well, was just sort of okay, solid at that spot. You got a new center in James Brockermeyer. This is, I think, the third or fourth year in a row Miami's gone into the portal to grab a center because that's just a position that they're continuing to recruit, but not maybe finding what they want at that spot. And then you've got big Markel Bell, who started 5 games for you last year, played a lot, had flashes of brilliance, and had moments when you watched them and you said, not as good as you wanted them to be. So I think this offensive line will be on the upper tier of the ACC, and a large part of that is just knowing Mario does a great job. Him and Alex Mirabal do a great job of recruiting that position, building depth around it. But beyond the starting five, just not a lot of guys who have played. Ryan Rodriguez started the opener for you last year at Florida, got hurt, didn't play again the rest of the year. Samson Okunlola, who I mentioned earlier, former five-star from the Massachusetts area, he's played a total of 63 snaps. Bruno Kinsler, an interior offensive lineman, 55 snaps. Just guys that have not played a ton. And so while I will give Mario the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, he's going to coach those guys up, he'll have them ready to go. You honestly don't know because it's just not a proven track record. And outside of James Brockermeyer, they didn't bring anybody else in via the transfer portal. So you're counting on these young guys that you've been grooming to be ready to go if needed. But for right now, starting five, I would take the starting five over a lot of them in the ACC.
So we got a running back that's going to just step up and fill some big shoes.
Yeah,
Several.
you got a couple. I think Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lai are your 1-2 punch. They combined for over 1,000 yards last year and 13 touchdowns. Obviously you had Damian Martinez, who was a seventh round pick, came in from Oregon State and ran for 1,000 yards himself. But the one thing I will say about Miami and Mario and his running back room is since taking over, Miami has progressed from ninth to second to first last year in yards per carry in the ACC, and so they proved last year to be the best running team in the league in terms of when they decide to run the football, what they can do with it, and so I think they will be among the top two or three once again in the conference because of their offensive line, because of the diversity that they have in the backfield, and they did go out and get up what I felt was an important addition, Chamar Brown, a guy who was highly productive for North Dakota State, ran for over 1,100 yards and 15 touchdowns. He is their number three running back. So I think when you think about the great Miami teams of the past, right, and how deep their running back room is, they always seem to have a guy who was fresh in the fourth quarter, ready to beat up the opposing team, the team that maybe is hanging with them for 3 quarters,
Yeah.
right? They always have that extra gear in the fourth quarter. I think that's what Chamar Brown brings them this season.
Okay. Let's bounce over to defense here. As again, we'll get into the front seven. Let's talk about that because there's some production there that needs to be replaced, and this could be the key to Miami's success this season, having a defense that can do a 50-50 at least, or offense defense, both
Yeah.
of them delivering will make the difference.
Yeah, two fifth round picks plucked off of this roster. Simeon Barrow came in from Michigan State last year, was an all ACC first team selection. He wasn't drafted, but Tyler Barron and Francisco Mauigoa, your starting middle linebacker, were draft picks. Michelle Powell, your safety, I think was really effective for you. So a lot of change on defense. We mentioned Corey Heatherman coming in as the new defensive coordinator. Corey did a phenomenal job in his one season calling plays in Minnesota. You go back and you look at the improvement that they made on that defensive side of the football. Minnesota was really, really good, and there really wasn't a lot of maybe roster turnover. He just kind of did it with the guys that were already there at Minnesota and did a phenomenal job. So he's getting a different front seven this year in the sense of new middle linebacker Wesley Bissainthe, who's a returning guy, but you go into the transfer portal, you get Kamal Bonner, who started the last 7 games of the season for NC State. You get Mohamed Toure, the pass rusher from Rutgers, who his experience has played a lot in his career, over 1,300 snaps, but didn't play last year. So some questions there. But I think for Miami, it all starts on the defensive line. I mentioned how well Mario has recruited there the last few years. You've gotten several five-star guys: Justin Scott out of Illinois, Marquise Lightfoot, another guy on the edge out of Illinois, Armando Blunt, a five-star here out of South Florida in the interior, who can bounce in and out. Those are the guys that are going to make or break Miami season. Not Ruben Bain, not Akeem Mesidor, two veterans that are back. It's the young guys. Can they make this team dominant up front? Can they take the next step? Cole McConaughey, a guy who they were really excited about last year on the edge. Do those guys come in and all of a sudden make names for themselves in college football? And I think if they do, and Corey Heatherman gets the most out of them, then this is a team that competes for the national championship this year and is in the college football playoff. If that doesn't happen, if Akeem Mesidor and Ruben Bain are doing all the heavy lifting and Justin Scott is just kind of a guy out there and Armando Blanc is just a guy out there, then this is a team that probably wins 7 or 8 games and disappoints. That's how big a deal the defensive line is, in my opinion.
Wow. Revamped secondary. You got a couple of transfers there. Poyser, O'Connor. Of course, you talked about Ruben Bain and David Blay. What are we looking at here from that standpoint? If let's say that front seven does what it's supposed to do, is that secondary? Is it looking, like it's going to hold up its end of the bargain and more?
Yeah, OJ Frederick was a true freshman last year who is the sort of one holdover from last year that really played a ton that you look at and you say, yeah, he's going to be solid. Everybody else in that secondary that they brought over is brand new. Charles Brantley from Michigan State, who's probably going to be your nickelback. Ethan O'Connor from Washington State, 12-game starter for Washington State, solid player. You mentioned Zechariah Poyser, the safety from Jacksonville State, who's a redshirt sophomore. All of those guys are new pieces. Xavier Lucas, who of course has plenty of interesting backstory with him coming over to Miami. Super talented South Florida guy that they're expecting a lot from. If all of those guys come in here and get a pass rush in front of them, then they should thrive. This should be one of the best secondaries, I think, in the country because these are all guys that have played a ton. I mentioned, coming from a place that where you played a Power Four conference. Charles Brantley has played over 1,400 snaps at Michigan State in the Big Ten. He was a good player for Michigan State. Zachariah Poyser was an all-conference type guy on a Jacksonville State team that won their league last year. Ethan O'Connor, Washington State, he was one of their best players on defense. So to me, I think again, it's going to depend on the pass rush. I think any secondary is only as good as their pass rush. If the pass rush is there, then this is a secondary that's been rebuilt that should thrive and be one of the best in the ACC.
Sounds good. Special teams, real quick thoughts there.
Yeah, new kicker. Obviously not a Borregales. We've had a Borregales run here for a long time. For Miami, Bert Auburn comes over. Was the starting kicker at Texas, 16 of 25 on field goals, only 6 of 14 on kicks that were 40 yards or longer. Obviously, change of scenery for him. Taking over the kicking duties. It'll be interesting to see how that works out for Miami. I think for a long time, Miami fans just always took for granted how good the Borregales brothers really were. They're both gone now in the NFL and playing the pros, and so we'll see what happens there. Their punter is back, solid guy, solid numbers last season. Nothing special, not Ray Guy type of award stuff. Miami didn't punt a lot. They had the number one offense in the country, so I don't think he necessarily got a ton of work. But I think, look, Keelan Marion was a huge pickup. He is, in terms of return guys, one of the best in college football. The problem is so many kicks go into the end zone now that can be nullified, and people know Marion as far as being an elite return guy. They're not going to kick him the football. They're going to try to kick it away from him. So if he gets one or two opportunities and he's able to break one, then you know what? Then it paid off because you got a special teams play that made the difference. But my thought process is special teams and the importance of it in college football has really been diminished because of where people are kicking off from and how they're trying to preserve the bodies of these athletes. So it's not the same game that we grew up watching where you had a Devin Hester or a Roscoe Parrish or somebody in the return game for Miami that made a special play for you. I just think all of that has been negated by the rules.
You know, Manny, how long he was at Miami? Neither one of us had any gray hair.
That's right. And now I got a bunch of it on my face. Yes.
It comes from a lot of other things other than just time, man. I tell you. Thank you, Manny. I really appreciate always talking with you and getting lowdown on so much. I mean, you've given us not only a good look at Miami, but also other players and other teams, and I couldn't ask for anything better. And folks who are watching and listening couldn't either. Miami Hurricanes football, this ACC Nation preview with Manny Navarro of The Athletic and New York Times and host of Wide Right Podcast. If you have not, you must today subscribe to Wide Right Podcast and, of course, The Athletic in order to read all of the great stuff that Manny is writing. So thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And best of luck coaching and much more. And stay cool in South Florida.
I will, brother. Thank you so much, Jim. It was fun doing the show with you again. Whenever you need me, let me know.
ACC Nation, your source for ACC sports coverage with Will and Jim. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on our podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Connect with us on Blue Sky, Reddit, Instagram, Threads, Mastodon, Facebook, X, and LinkedIn.